Now we're rolling. Okay, so welcome everyone. I am Asaf, here with my partner Dima. Thanks for joining us this afternoon or evening. Today we wanted to talk about Gen AI reliability. And like some of you are maybe wondering, another Gen AI reliability webinar. So yes, and we believe that we have a unique spin on this that we haven't seen in a lot of cases. We haven't seen in many platforms out there that are supposed to provide Gen AI reliability platforms for building applications. And we wanted to share that with the group here. Very quickly, I am Asaf, co-founder at Multinear. Multinear at this point in time is an open source project that we're making available. It is also how Dima and I are branding our micro consulting firm. So generally our experience is in software, AI, Gen AI in the past couple of years. We have done a lot of projects in Gen AI with multiple customers from very early stage startups all the way to public companies, Fortune 100s. And through that journey and that work that we've done with a lot of companies, we saw many patterns that repeat themselves, which we've seen as primary contributors to basically Gen AI projects failing. Through that process, we identified some tips and tricks and processes on how to get things rolling better, which we formalized to this framework that we ended up coding as a tool that helped us deliver the projects that we were contracted to build. Over time, we saw that there is also benefit in allowing teams to retain access to that platform that allow them to continuously test and validate the products and projects that we deliver to them, both to continue improving them, but also to monitor them in production over time. And about 4 months ago, we decided to put everything in GitHub, make it available to the world, and hopefully get people to use it and contribute to that. So that is Multinear. I'll give Dima kind of half a minute to introduce himself, and then we can get to the demo itself.
Welcome everybody. Nice to meet you. I think I've known several people here. I think Asaf covered pretty much most of it. I just add that I'm coming from the engineering side. I've been a software engineer, co-founder in startups, then held several years executive roles at various enterprises, and now working on Gen AI nonstop. I'm going to send a poll, like the first poll, just to get you.
So just 1 minute before that, quick agenda, and then we can get to the poll. So what we're going to cover today, first section is some of our observations and also some data on why Gen AI POCs and pilots fail. So numbers as well as an opinionated perspective. We'll look at what we have seen to be missing in most of the teams and projects that we were involved in. The Multinear 5-dimensional framework, branding TBD, is what we basically have formulated our perspectives and approach around, and how we the baseline for the infrastructure that we created. And then we'll talk also about how we use that not only to build products, but also monitor them in production. So to get started, we wanted to have a quick poll and ask you what you think or what you've seen is the percentage of Gen AI POCs that never make it to production. So here are the options. Hopefully it popped up: 30 to 40%, 40 to 55, 60 to 80, or more than 85% of actual projects that never make it to production. Dima, I don't have visibility to the responses, so let me know when we have enough.
I think we're good right
Okay.
now. Let me just end and share it. Right.
Interesting. So I think everyone understands that it's more than half. And I think there's an interesting observation on how much more than half of them. So these are numbers that we didn't come up with. You can see a lot of these come from polls that or surveys that are very proliferated by S&P, IDC, Informatica, which came on the headlines very recently. They're probably going to be acquired by Salesforce for a hefty sum. So these are the numbers that they came out with very recently. You see, all of this is from March and February of this year. 46% of POCs not even making it past the pilot phase, and 88% of POCs never making it to production. And at least in the enterprise space, a lot of companies testify that they are actually stuck in pilot. And even a more astounding number is 97% of companies said that they are still struggling with showing value from Gen AI in general, right? And this survey was about any Gen AI application. So even RAG applications, which are supposedly, super standard and commoditized, even in those areas, at least the enterprise players in the market are still saying it's hard for them to show concrete business value. Some of the reasons behind this, and again, this is going into some details that we got from the surveys, but primarily based on our personal experience. First and foremost, what we've observed is that most teams, which are generally comprised of data scientists and or software engineers, are heavily focused on data science metrics. So they're seeing Gen AI applications as yet another AI model, and they do what they know how to do best, right? So they look at accuracy, and they look at grounding, and they look at truthfulness, and they're looking for quantifiable metrics that are important, but a big piece of what they're missing is the business goal. So they can build very accurate models, at least on whatever ground truth they have, which we also know is a much smaller data sample in most cases compared to what they would usually require for a standard AI model, which does not capture in any way the business goal. So there is some questionable proxy between accuracy of the information that the application delivers and how well delivering accurate information can actually impact the business need or the pain point that they're building the application for. Another aspect that is very commonly overlooked and usually only addressed at the very end of the project is the user experience. So when people come in and start using whatever tool the team built, we see very common issues, right? Of people not understanding how to interact with the bot or the tool, people not understanding the limitations, people not understanding how to phrase or pose a question to a model that gives them the best results. And in some cases, we've seen teams that actually say, okay, we're going to train the users on doing better prompting so that they can realize the highest value from the application. And as a lot of the people in this forum are product managers, or at least receptive to the concepts of product management, we know that training the users on something that is not part of their day-to-day is one of the best ways of how your application would fail. So even if prompting was easy, which we all know that it's not, right? It's a brand new programming language that you have to learn and train and iterate. It is not something that can be used by most teams. The result eventually is a successful model that boasts very high data science metrics, but fails commercially. And commercially can be adoption by an internal team. It can be adoption by external users. Across the board, we're seeing that it's very hard for people and organizations to use these products and to realize the business value out of them. What we're proposing is a shift in mindset and basically saying that evals, right, which is what everyone is talking about over the past year, evals should also include, not only, but also include explicit product and business requirements. And this is something that a lot of teams miss. This is something that a lot of teams may realize that they want to do, but they don't really have that, or they're not sure how to do it, and they're not also sure how to introduce that into an iterative process that helps them improve over time and get to a production-grade system. Now, eval is kind of a buzzword that everyone's throwing around, right? Even the leaders of OpenAI and Anthropic and Meta Labs who are building Llama, everyone's talking about evals, but it's very hard to understand how to write evals that capture this information and how to create a process that can leverage this, and who exactly is the person that writes those evals, and when's the right time to do it. What we've seen in many cases, and that's actually the reality, and I can't say that we found a better way to overcome this, is that it is extremely hard to write evals upfront before you start the development process. Okay, so a lot of people correlate that to test-driven development, but where in, let's call it standard software development, it might be easier for you to write a testing battery that basically breaks down requirements to measurable outcomes that we can evaluate against. In GenAI applications, because of the inherent uncertainty of what can the model do, how accurate can we get it, what's the experience going to look like, and all the dependencies between those, it's very, very hard to write evals upfront. And so what Dima and I also do a lot of times is that when we start working with a new team, we basically tell them, give us all your data, and we're going to simulate, or we're going to synthesize evals out of that data without necessarily knowing exactly what the end result is going to look like. And we build the expectation, but also the process and the setup to continuously improve evals over time as we and the team understand all those unknowns, right? Capabilities, usability, what the actual value that we can expect to get out of the system. And then that's part of the iterative experimentation process. So again, we have no expectation that evals would be crisp and clean and complete ahead of time. It is something that evolves with the system as we're researching and building that over time. The second element, like we said, is going beyond accuracy. So the way that we write evals, and Dima will give you a few examples on this, can capture these quantifiable, measurable KPIs, but it can also talk very specifically and directly about business value, about user experience, and about how the interactions will look like when the product will go to production and when people will start using it. And the last element is transparency of benchmarks. So as I already noted, the only way that we know how to do today in getting anything to production is through iterations and experimentations. To facilitate rapid experimentation, we need to create these evals. We need a very quick and easy way to run those experiments, get results, understand what changes impacted what parts of the system behavior, and eventually, before we go to production, formalize that as a benchmark. And then that benchmark can be used in production to continuously test the system, identifying things like drift, allow us to be able to update the system when a new model comes out, when new requirements are flushed out, and eventually be able to support that system in production. Quick break. We'll take another poll for everyone here. And again, from your experience, and also maybe from some of the things you've heard here, which dimensions do you see are most impactful for building a successful GenAI application? And Dima will bring up the options. So it's could be the data, underlying data that comes from the company, the evals that we write, the foundation model or models that we use in the application, code and prompts, or the stack, right? So this can be open source libraries, vector databases, anything else that goes into building an app.
So let half more minute for people to make a vote, and then I'll share it.
One more note, if you do want to ask questions, feel free to post them on the chat. While I'm presenting, Dima will be able to answer them. When we switch, we'll also switch on that, and we will have Q&A time at the end. Okay, let's bring up the results. So I think there's a good split between data and code. Obviously, data is the underlying asset for anything. If we don't have good data, we probably can't get a lot of good outcomes. And prompts and code are really where most of the teams go to, right? So this is also something we've observed very broadly in the industry. And I can say that a lot of data, a lot of GenAI teams, right, no matter who's on the team, view the data as a given. Basically, this is what the product team or the business gave us, and this is what we have to work with. And they primarily go to prompting to address any issues or fine-tune the system. Now, this was a trick question because our perspective is that all 5 of these elements are equally important, and all 5 of these elements must be reviewed and evaluated in every iteration of the application. And that's also a primary culture that we're looking to build, a process that we're looking to build, and something that we formalized in the infrastructure. So if we touch on data, right, there is a lot of processing that we could do on the data itself that facilitates better outcomes that no matter what amount of prompting you do will not be able to resolve that. Respectively, and this is something that Dima will give a very direct example to, we have seen conflicts created between the data and the prompt, the data and the open source libraries that we use, even sometimes between the data and the stack that we use, such as the vector database or whatever embedding models we use, that are better addressed or only addressable by switching one of them, right? So changing the data or changing the dependency on one of the other elements that no amount of prompting can really resolve. And that, again, is something that's very repetitive. What we believe, and we've seen that happen a number of times, and that's what we always introduce in any project that we do, we have to start with the data and eval as a first step. And we need to make sure that we understand how much of that exists, how it behaves. And that's a huge challenge because a lot of times you don't know what data will help you and what doesn't. Sometimes you don't have enough data. And when you write the evals, we already talked about it, you're not sure how to write them. And again, there's no expectation that you would. That's why it's a cycle. That's why we use whatever we have. We start with it, but then we come back to the data and we come back to the eval, reevaluate them, feed them back into the process, and make sure that we acknowledge the fact that a system can go wrong even if you have the best prompting, and you have to look at all of these elements to be able to improve it over time. Now, the point is rapid iteration, okay? That's the key to any successful process. You have to move fast. You are going to run out of time. You're going to run out of money. You're going to run out of patience from whatever sponsor you have, whether that's corporate or a VC or even just a market that is looking for, improvements of your product or just competition, moving faster than you are. And that's really what Multinear is all about. So Multinear is a very simple evaluation, testing framework, and benchmarking framework that looks at the output of your application, traces all of these elements, the data, the evals, etc., and tries to correlate results with changes, okay? That's very basic. We haven't invented anything other than the fact that we introduced the business and product input as part of the evaluation cycle and the visibility into all of these 5 dimensions in one package. And that package can be used by both developers and business stakeholders, each one in a different level, obviously. And that's what's also leading us to a robust production application. So the process doesn't end when we go to production. When we go to production, it only starts, right? So we know that production is only round one of getting feedback from the market. And that feedback is critical to feedback in. It's critical to evaluate that quickly. It's critical to understand how small changes can potentially have huge impacts in areas of the system that we don't look at. So a comprehensive benchmark is really critical for us to be able to understand that and be able to flag any critical issues very quickly. And especially in production, if we find any misbehaviors, we have to be able to fix them quickly. And also if we want to make sure that we're on top of the recent changes in the industry, right? So we know that going to production means that we're locking ourselves into one model. 3 months down the line, there's going to be a more powerful model. It's going to be faster. It might even be cheaper, and we want to take advantage of it. We have to have a very robust and quick way to evaluate how switching the current model with the new one impacts the output of the system and impacts the business and product performance of it. I don't know if there's any interest. I'm not going to go into too many details here. If you are interested, you can comment on the chat and I can go into some more details. But this is what the journey that Dima and I went through when we were doing these projects, and we were trying to find a platform that can help us do that. And we looked at a few more common and kind of reputable tools out there. This is just a very short list of them. I think we had that done about 6 or 7 months ago. Since then, a lot more came up. And we just wanted to highlight some of the things that disappointed us and made us not want to use them and build something of our own. So Ragas, I think, which is one of the most known and most reputable, is great, but it really is super focused on data science metrics. It is super quantifiable, KPI oriented. And also, when you try to scale it up to non-RAG patterns, it's very limited. So it's really very strict and focused on RAG. Deep eval gives amazing dashboards that allow you to monitor development and monitor production, but it does not support inherently an iterative baseline. So it doesn't give you actionable feedback on what should you change next. Doesn't give you enough drilling to understand and debug the system. And also the limited out-of-the-box patterns that it supports. Most of these were written when RAG started becoming very popular and focusing on that. A lot less support for agent patterns. Phoenix, another known one, great for production monitoring, not so much for pre-production testing. Opic is the last one here, again, focused on experimentation, but not enough on the holistic pipeline that encapsulates all of those 5 elements that we talked about. I can go into more details about each one of this, but really what we want to focus on are some key takeaways to keep in mind and then go directly to the demo. So again, business and product integration, not only on the evals, but also on the team. We want to get those people us, right? Product managers involved in the iterative exploration process and not just be called upon once every 2 weeks when a sprint is done to look at things. A holistic framework that looks at all of the elements, all 5 dimensions that go into building robust pipelines, rapid iteration cycles, and then eventually continuous benchmarking when you go to production. I am going to hand it off to Dima. I'll stop my screen share and then he will show us what this is all about.
All right. So we'll work with some code, but it will be a very simple code. So hopefully everybody will understand. Let me know if you don't or you have any questions. You can just ask them in the chat or raise a hand. So we're going to have a demo for a customer support bot. I just took some bank FAQ online, downloaded it, made some changes to anonymize it. Now it's Acme Bank, but all in all is just frequently asked questions and answers to these questions as a very basic example of how a usual customer support bot works. And the code, so we have several variations of the code. Just the cleaner version is this. I'm using one of the popular libraries called Llama Index, which basically does it all for you. What we have here is I load all the libraries. I just load the data. Right now it's just a single file. I use GPT-4o as a model. I create a vector store, so it knows how to do a semantic search. And that's pretty much it. Now I'm able to run questions on this engine, and I get the answers. And it works. I have another implementation, which is basically the same thing wrapped in a web interface. Show you. So basically, this is how it looks like. This is the customer support, Llama index. How do I reset my password? It does its work, magic behind the scenes. There is a lot of work that's happening here. We'll get to it very soon, but all in all, eventually you just get your answer. Now, how do we know to test such an application? One of the most useful ways for us was a sort of reverse engineering. So we know which information the customer support bot should be able to answer. This is the documentation, right? So right now it's one file, but for the same matter, it could be 1,000 files. But I do know which information it contains, and this is the most frequently asked questions. So I can take this file, I can put it and work with some smart model and just generate questions that people would ask based on this information. And because I use this file as a source, I know exactly how do I gauge the answers, how do I assess the answers. So now we're moving to Multinear. The configuration looks as pretty much a checklist, a list of questions, and each questions I know exactly how do I assess it based on this information. So this is how it looks. I have an input and then some sort of checklist that is very similar to how assertions look in a code. But oh no, it's basically a checklist of things that I would expect in an answer. As an example, password. How do I reset my password? For example, another important part is that we need to inform the user that they can call a bank and they have to use their ID. in order to do something. So Multinear, let me switch to Multinear now. Multinear allows to run these tests. So it just basically goes question by question. It uses our engine to run these questions and get the answer, and then it starts checking each answer whenever it fits all the checkboxes. And it looks like this. I'm just going to show you the results without all the process in between to save us some time. But basically, it looks like this. You see what did pass, what didn't pass, but most importantly, you can dive in. For example, I want to look just on the failed. I can dive in and see why didn't it work well enough. So most of the things there, but they're not exactly as the system would expect them to be. In some cases, they're not there at all. And because right now we're using LLM as a judge, you can see not just the score, but you can also see why did model decide to give that score. And this is very important because basically the process works like this. You create the first version of your application. You create the first version of the tests. Then you run them, and you need to understand what's wrong. And when you see something is wrong, you need to have at least a, an idea or educated guess of how you can improve it, or what can you improve it, what can you do in order to improve it. It could be your prompt needs to be like to have some additional instruction. It could be the data that you pull needs to be improved. It could be the test needs to be improved. In some cases, the tests are not designed properly, and you can easily see it when you see why did it fail. So most other tools that we saw, they are focused on the metrics. We are focused on actually diving deeper and providing you more visibility, or converting it to some sort of like explainable AI, because a lot of this work is just trial and error, experimentation, and you do need to understand what was the root cause of the problem in order to be able to fix it or try to fix it. Another problem that we constantly faced is that when you do see such a problem and you try to fix it, you may actually, let's say you do some prompt engineering, you improved your prompt and you fixed that problem. It happens a lot that by fixing this problem, you made some other working functionality to start failing now. So you made a regression. And if we don't have these tests, it's very hard to catch those regressions. As soon as we do have these tests, even if they're not fully covering all our product, it's much easier to see that you not just fixed this problem, but you also didn't make a regression. So you basically incrementally improved your system. Now, when you have these things, it's also very easy to start comparing. And what did we see? So what I showed you was Llama Index implementation. Llama Index is known for its very good RAG implementation that's covering lots of things and does a lot of things for you. And here we see that it wasn't very good, at least according to our tests. Maybe it was the problem with our tests. So what I did just copied the same project and changed the code to LangChain. Pretty much the same thing. Let me show you. So the LangChain code is just a little bit longer, a little bit more verbose, but it's pretty much the same. It's load the text, split it into chunks, create a vector semantic search, and just use this conversational chain with top three documents every time that we need to provide an answer. And it pretty much works, and works pretty much the same. But if we start it, I immediately saw that all my tests have passed. Even though this is like not too many tests, but it was still a very stark difference between like 50% of the tests passing well and 100% of the tests passing well. And if you pay attention, you see that the format of the output is quite different. Now, when I started to dig in, it was very interesting insight, and I want to show you, but like I want to show you by demonstration. So let's take a look at how Llama index version handles it. So we do have a tracing with Arise Phoenix. Let's take a look again. So I just reload it from scratch. And I have this local tracing server. How do I reset my password? And then we'll see that it starts working and it starts logging all the details, all the steps in order to do that. Let's just wait until it finishes. Okay, so this is the answer that we got. Now, if we take a look at the result, we see that there is a chain that, well, does quite a lot of things. If I take a deeper dive, I see that first step, it basically creates several more queries, several more questions based on my original question. And it has all kinds of prompts like you are world class, state of the art, agent, blah, blah, blah. This is the question, this is the question, sorry. Generate more questions. So it generated several more questions that look similar to mine or try to retrieve the same information as my question. Then it went and repeated the RAG step for each of these questions. So it basically took, again, let me just try to see. Okay, so another system prompt, you're an expert Q&A. This is the context information. These are basically the chunks that it found from the document. And then a result is some answer that actually looks very good, very close to what's in the document, if not one for one. And then it repeated it for each and every generated question. And the last step is to synthesize the final question from the set of middle, like intermediate questions. So basically, if we take a look at the prompt, it's again, expert Q&A system. This is the context. These are the sub-questions. And then the final question looks nowhere near like the data in the FAQ. It does contain some of that information, but presented in a different way. And it misses, in some cases, it misses quite a lot of important information. Now, if we do the same thing exactly with the LangChain version, what we see is quite different. So, sorry. Okay. So here we start the server from scratch. Just copy paste the question, reloading it. So now we are working with LangChain powered version of the same thing. Asking question. Okay, I get an answer. Let's take a look at what happened. What happened is just one call. LangChain is doing it in a significantly simpler way. At least, again, the default implementation, the one that was just taken from their documentation as an example. And what it does, it doesn't pretend to be world-class expert Q&A, whatever. It just says, use the following pieces of context to answer a question. If you don't know, don't make up an answer. Just say that you don't know. And then it provides my original question, and it gets the good result because it basically didn't do any additional post-processing or pre-processing of the data, and we received a very good result. Now, the difference here is that if we take a look at why does it happen, it happens because Llama Index they know that in most cases your data will be messy and you won't do a good job of organizing it. So they're trying to maximize the chances of find right documents. So the reason that they're rephrasing the question, it helps to find the relevant information across a large document base and then compile the final answer from all these different contexts that it was able to find. But in our case, this actually just reduced the quality of the answer because of these prompts that we didn't really control. And these prompts are just part of the library, part of the framework. It's possible to overwrite them, but the best practice is actually to use it as your very small POC to show that you can do it, but then you will start iterating on these prompts or even creating them from scratch altogether in order to get what you need. So the main point is that if you don't look into the weeds, into what's happening there, if you're not able to set up these tests appropriately, it will be very hard and you will be pretty much playing the whack-a-mole thing, right? You'll fix one problem and you'll get another. Okay, I'll probably pause here and we'll get back to Asaf and hopefully we'll have some more time for questions. Don't forget to unmute yourself. Ah, right, you cannot. Okay. Sorry, that was my...
Okay, thank you. Now I'm in the game. So before we summarize, actually, any questions from anyone, feel free to unmute. Okay, we did get some interesting questions in the chat. I don't know how many people were able to follow, but I think a big part of why this framework works, for us at least, is that it is very easy for us to do the zoom in and zoom out. So it's not only per use case, being able to see how the use case performed and going down to the traces and understanding exactly what changed, getting insights from the LLM as a judge on why one of the tests underperformed or failed completely, but also the ability to zoom in and out from the full application across all use cases into a specific use case and coming back to see the impact. That's a whack-a-mole analogy that we had. And also a lot of pieces here that are very configurable by the owners of the system. So any thresholds and how exactly the system scores around that. And then really the understanding that the evaluations themselves are not perfect. And when we see that a specific answer failed, but it actually looks right, then it gives us the hint that we probably want to go back and fix the evaluation criteria, and maybe the system itself is okay. Sorry, so wrapping things up, Multinear is open source. You can go to the GitHub and download it. Feel free to contribute. Give us a like and a star if you like it. You're also welcome to reach out to us either through our website or directly on LinkedIn. Happy to connect with anyone. Um, like I said, Dima and I do also do consulting. The platform itself is open source and free. If you have any challenges, if you want to talk to us, we're offering everyone here kind of a free 1 hour session. We'll be happy to jump on a call with you, learn about your use cases, your challenges, give you some quick tips on what we think you might be able to explore or how we might approach this. And again, no commitment. We're happy to meet you. We always want to learn about new use cases and expand, our network and our understanding of the industry. If you do have questions about Multinear and how to integrate that, we're also happy to jump on a call with you and walk you through the integration part. We can talk to a technical person on your team, or if you want to do that on yourself. Um, and then just help you set up, first-time usage of Multinear as an open source. There is a lot of documentation that we try to put into place, but sometimes it's just easier to have someone who did that already walk you through that. So again, we're super happy to support in that area as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that according to our experience, the tool itself just usually not enough. Like the approach is what matters, and creating these tests is what matters. And it's quite different between different use cases because GenAI models are so powerful. You can apply them to a huge variety, a huge spectrum of use cases, and each of these different use case groups requires a different approach for testing. So for example, for customer support bot, you will mostly use LLM as a judge. For text to SQL, which we already had a webinar earlier, you would probably create a mock database and run the SQL that as a result of the AI work, you will run it against the mock database. And then because you designed the database, so you know exactly what we would expect. And Multinear supports a variety of test types. It can be LLM as a judge. It could be even some custom code that you run in, say, Python. So just again, what we saw consulting companies as well is that it takes time for people to kind of understand how to do these things. But once they get the grasp of how do you create these tests, how do you use the platform, it usually becomes just a daily driver for them, and they start developing new GenAI powered features.
Okay, I think we can wrap up for today. Again, feel free to reach out to us via any channel. And thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.